Remember what I said about feeling bad for Obito? This chapter just took it to a whole other level of me feeling bad. So I think finally Kishimoto found the groove more or less for Obito to go, a path for him to go through, where I think not only the people that were kind of indifferent to him after a certain point, but also even some of the people that were really with the strong dislike towards the character can kind of maybe change their minds. Because after a certain point with Obito, I just kind of had like, just like, oh god, he just didn't stop with his nonsense of talking about the same shit over and over. But as it progressed and everything, especially where we're at right now, I just started feeling sympathy for the character. I've said it already a couple different times, and it's like the third or fourth time I've said it. And now with this chapter, I was just like, one of the things that I really noticed is the character came full circle. He went through everything, all the BS that he went through, and then ultimately came back to what he was originally. And that was that kid that once upon a time just wanted to protect his friends and do the right thing. So in the beginning of this chapter, Shenron Hagoromo, summoned from the Dragon Balls, aka Madara's legs. We get a little bit more of an explanation as to how he was able to arrive out of Madara. It was basically the combination of Ashura and Indra's chakra, because basically you know how Madara had kind of both of them inside of them, as well as the Kyuubi's chakra. At first he had to clarify himself because he said Hashirama, Madara, and all this other shit, and he was like, no. Basically, the simplistic way to summon Hagoromo was having both of those alongside the Kyuubi. Now, that kind of connects back to the past where you saw, like, out of all the Biju, it seemed as though the Kyuubi was the most attached to him. He was the one crying. And ultimately, it seemed as though out of all of the Jinchuriki, Naruto was the special one that got that, different look to him and always had something different to him. Not only probably because of the sage's son within him, but I think also that had to do with the Kyuubi, and the combination of all that is what summoned him when Naruto and Sasuke summoned him originally. But at the same time, it's also as if he was still kind of carried over. So one of the things I was kind of confused, because he later states that he doesn't have enough chakra to do the seal that he's trying to do. But if he was summoned from one place and from another, like, was it that he shares the same type of chakra that he left behind between, like, being inside of Madara's legs and being inside of Naruto and Sasuke? A little bit confusing there, but ultimately it definitely seems as though the sage was prepared for this day. Good old Tobirama, the impatient prick that he is. And I mean, at the end of the day, you just gotta laugh at this point. Like, the dude is just a straight dick. He doesn't give a fuck. He's like, yo, get to the point with the story. And it was kind of ironic how he was saying, I don't need a long recap, just tell me more or less. It was like, we were getting some recap here and there as well, so maybe that's Kishimoto realizing, yeah, I've been kind of doing a lot of recap, let me stop. And I'm imagining the technique that Hagoromo has in mind regarding sealing and using like this massive amount of chakra, which he's probably going to get from the Hokage, to do so. He probably used the same technique to seal Kaguya in the first place, and when him and his brother went up against her, they did this technique, and this is how Kaguya was put down the first time. And at this particular point, I mean, I've been waiting for a while to see what Kaguya is about, if we were going to get a little bit more about her and just kind of dive into her a little bit more, or if her personality was going to start shining. But it seems as though what Kishimoto really wants to do is just kind of have her, for the most part, very silent. She says a thing or two here, there, and that's why he's having Black Zetsu stick around to kind of be the narration for Kaguya, since she really isn't going to speak. And at the end of the day, it would become very stale if the entire time the villain just has no dialogue. So Black Zetsu, to a certain degree at this particular point, what he's being used as is basically a plot device to keep things interesting on the villain's side of what's going on, since Madara's, AFK at the moment, or at least his upper half. But at this point, the way Black Zetsu just constantly is prompting things like, oh yeah, you should use that jutsu now, oh yeah, you need to do that. I really want Kaguya to just get fed up with this motherfucker and says, yo, just how I kind of said fuck you to my other kids, come over here and rip that little fucker and rip him in half or something. It's like, Black Zetsu at this particular point is nothing more than just a device for narration on the villain's side. Other than that, he served his purpose. We found out what he did in the past. Unless Black Zetsu is truly controlling Kaguya at this particular point, I really want her to get fed up with this fucker and just like rip him to shreds and say, you know what, I'm gonna take your fucking chakra too and just rip him out, because he's really just plot device at this point for narration. And you can see from the middle of this chapter where Kishimoto was going, because he was starting off with Kakashi basically saying, fuck, I can't do anything. And it was building up from that point on to the end of the chapter where Kakashi ready to take that noble sacrifice in the end. Now I'm curious, was the pull from Rin to both of their arms metaphoric? it just seemed a little bit weird. That was one of the things about the chapter. I was like, all of a sudden Rin comes and just like pulls their arms. Like, I'm pretty sure and I'm hopeful that that was metaphoric and not like one last time Rin helped out. But I think that was supposed to symbolize the bond between the three of them that kind of reunited them once more ultimately at that particular point for Obito to do what he did. And I like the way Kishimoto played around with the narration, especially for the manga. In the anime, it wouldn't play so well, but in the manga, the way he did it, where Kakashi's first thinking like, you know, this is it, Rin, we're finally gonna see each other again, and maybe, you know, things will be different or whatever, and like you have the narration, and then kind of in between, at first I thought it was still Kakashi talking, because you see like the dialogue kind of like just jump from one box to another, and I'm like, okay, so Kakashi's still thinking, and then it's not until after the fact where I'm like, oh, so it switched over and that was Obito thinking now, and it kind of like played a little bit off. So I thought that was nicely done, the way it kind of was a little bit confusing at first, so you think that it's Kakashi the entire time thinking, and then you find out later that the second half was Obito thinking, this is my time, this is what I've been needing to do, and ultimately uses Kamui to send the attack his way instead of Kakashi's. Now, regardless of the fact, I mean, we already know about Obito, you know, surviving catastrophe or whatever, this definitely seems like this is the pivotal moment, the rod through the stomach. I mean, I wish it would have been something a little bit bigger, because he survived so damn much up to this point to kind of be taken out by a rod, but the way it was done, the emotional side, and just ultimately this kid coming full circle, again, like, I will keep saying it, I feel bad for this motherfucker. If you look at it for a very simplistic way, he's a guy that he had great morals, he was a great person when he was a kid. Ultimately, he fucked up, and he kept fucking up for a long time throughout his life, making huge mistakes, doing the wrong thing, kind of following a false path that he felt he needed to take to get to where he wanted to be. Realized he fucked up, kind of a little bit on the way he realized, but ultimately he came to the realization, and now he just wants to do what he ultimately started off wanting to do, and that's protect people. And the final dialogue between him and Kakashi, Kishimoto definitely nailed it right there. Like, this is the best since Obito's been revealed, that the character has really, I felt, been done justice, to the point where he became a little bit likable. It's a little bit less on the fuck this guy side, to a little bit more of, damn, this guy, you know, he's going through some shit. I feel kind of bad now. And at this particular point, I think this kind of confirms as well, with Obito seemingly, you know, taking the bullet and about to die, unless Naruto heals him again, that Kakashi probably isn't gonna die at this particular point. Unless, like, one thing after another, Obito takes that rod and then Kaguya lifts up Kakashi and splashes him or some shit on some Frieza stuff. I don't think Kakashi's dying anymore. I mean, this was one of the last bullets he could have taken, and it was kind of in the same vein as, like, what happened during the Pain arc, when he was there and, like, Pain was throwing that rod at him as well, except this time he had one of his comrades to save him. So I guess Kishimoto kind of was mirroring that in a way. I don't know if self-consciously he was doing it or purposely. So definitely very good end to the chapter. Some of the problems, mainly, I was just kind of like, the whole Rin thing kind of seemed weird. It was like a metaphor, but at the same time, it does seem like she pulled him to a certain degree. And a little bit of the dialogue about Obito saying, yeah, we can finally be alone, me and Rin. It was just kind of like getting a little on the awkward side, but I get what it's trying to do. It's basically, you know, on a mature level, me being mature about it, it's basically trying to say, you know, he's getting to see his old friend again, and this is goodbye. And quickly, just want to mention Kaguya's gravity technique. I mean, how many techniques does this woman have? This is definitely, if anything of her proving herself as far as being a formidable foe, is that she has so many goddamn techniques, between being able to, you know, change up from different places using this gravity technique. She has a lot of techniques, and rightfully so, because she is the mother of all shinobi to a certain degree. And by the way, for anyone that follows me on Twitter, I'll reiterate this again. I find it funny that Kishimoto recently said in the author comments that he went to see Frozen, and I believe he really enjoyed it. And then later on, you know, shortly after, Kaguya has this ice palace. Next thing you know, Naruto's going to use Let It Go no Jutsu to finish her off. You never know. But ultimately, very emotional chapter at the end, especially. It was just like, Obito, Kishimoto's doing a decent job at the very least of turning it around and making the character that a lot of people hated, and now we just kind of feel bad for him. It seems as though this is setting up for Kaguya's seal, but it leaves some questions behind. Like, first of all, what do you guys think is going to happen with Madara if, you know, Kaguya does get sealed and he kind of revives back with, like, you know, his torso and everything connected to his legs? Is he going to go back to being a villain? Is he going to say, you know what, my whole plan was the Moon Eye plan and this shit was fake to begin with, so fuck it, I have no answers to peace? And what do you think about that ending? Do you think, first of all, Obito is indeed dead? Do you think he's going to be healed by Naruto? Like, at this point, if he doesn't die, then I'm calling super BS, because if Naruto heals him again, even though he's under gravity, and this seemingly was the perfect time for Obito to exit, you know, this was it, he bit the big one and helped one last time, then it would just be ridiculous. This should definitely be the end for Obito. It was appropriate, it was a good end, and yeah, I don't think he should be healed anymore. And just overall thoughts of the chapter, again, I honestly felt it was very good. I felt this was the appropriate way to handle Obito's end. Out of all the blunders and everything, I think this was where it should have happened with him, and this is where, you know, at the very least, it went down. Obito's gone, and he went back to who he used to be. So I'm going to give this chapter 8.5 out of 10. I felt it was very good, and ultimately is building up in the beginning to what seemingly is going to be the end of Kaguya soon. Let's just get rid of Black Zetsu first. But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, you can do so as well. That'd be awesome. I'm Finette World, and as always, people, have an awesome day.